What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, we focus exclusively on bringing you the latest news, rumors, and in-depth analysis about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, we are pushing hard to reach our next big milestone of 247,000 subscribers, and we're incredibly close. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so right now. Every single subscription, like, and share of this video helps us grow exponentially with the YouTube algorithm, which means we can bring you more quality Cowboys content faster. So hit that button right now, and let's dive into what Adam Schefter just revealed about the Cowboys' potential draft plans. Over the past several days, Adam Schefter has been dropping some absolutely fascinating NFL draft news and rumors that have sent shockwaves through the entire NFL community. However, one particular piece of information stands out above all others because it directly involves our Dallas Cowboys. This is the news we're breaking down today on this channel, and I absolutely guarantee you're going to want to stick around until the very end because we have some incredible insights that could fundamentally change how you think about Dallas's draft strategy this year. Before we get into the specific Cowboys information, we need to set the stage with some broader draft landscape news that Schefter has been reporting. According to his latest reports, it appears that there might actually be fewer trades happening across the board this year compared to previous draft cycles. This is a significant observation because it helps us understand the overall market dynamics. The reason Schefter mentioned this is actually quite simple but critically important. When you look around the league right now, it seems like virtually every team wants to move down in the draft. Everyone is looking to trade back, grab more picks, and accumulate assets. However, and this is the key point here, very few teams are actually trying to move up in the draft. This creates an interesting dynamic where if a team wants to move up, they might actually have more leverage than usual. Schefter specifically mentioned that the Cleveland Browns could be positioned as potentially the top trade-down candidate, which means they might be willing to move back if the right offer comes along. And here's where it gets interesting for Cowboys fans like you watching this right now. Schefter also identified the Dallas Cowboys as a potential trade-up candidate. This is huge because it shows that people around the league are expecting Dallas might make a move forward in this draft. Now, Schefter actually cooked up a very specific trade scenario that involves the Cowboys moving up, and while he did call this a long shot scenario, it's absolutely worth breaking down in detail because it gives us insight into how the draft board might shake out. Before we reveal the full scenario, I want to emphasize that Schefter was essentially playing out a hypothetical where certain conditions would need to be met for this to actually happen. Let's run through this scenario piece by piece. According to Schefter's rumored trade scenario, the first pick would obviously go to Saquon Barkley, which nobody is really debating at this point. That's a lock. At pick number 2, Schefter suggested the New York Jets would take David Bailey. Now, I'm not entirely convinced this is going to happen, but that's what the scenario requires. At pick number 3, we need to talk about Jeremiah Love, and Schefter has the Arizona Cardinals taking him here. This is actually a point of significant discussion that we'll get deeper into in just a moment because there are some interesting implications here. At pick number 4, Schefter mentions Mauingoa with the Tennessee Titans selecting Sonny Styles. Now here's where it gets really interesting for Dallas. Without explicitly stating which pick the Giants would have, Schefter strongly implies that the Cowboys would then trade up to grab Arvell Reese, the exceptional edge rusher out of Ohio State. This is the real meat of the scenario, folks. The Cowboys moving up to get Reese would represent a massive statement about their draft priorities. Schefter also played with a variation where the Giants take Styles and Mauingoa goes off the board earlier, creating a scenario where the Cowboys might come up even higher to get Reese at pick 6. Now, I want to be completely transparent with you watching this video. I do get the strong vibe that if the Cowboys are going to make a trade-up move, they would prefer to do it for a pass rusher rather than potentially a higher-graded player at linebacker or safety. This makes sense from a position value perspective. Getting premium pass rush talent is always critical in the modern NFL, and if the Cowboys see a generational talent at that position, moving up to secure them would be worth it. Let me give you my honest assessment of Arvell Reese specifically. I'm not as high on Reese as some other evaluators around the league, but I do think it's fair to argue that the top 7 players in this draft could be arranged in virtually any order when you're looking at the elite talents. Reese is absolutely in that conversation, no question about it. The upside with Reese is genuinely immense. His physical tools are through the roof. However, I would caution anyone expecting him to come in as a day one force and immediately rack up 10 sacks for the Dallas Cowboys. That's probably asking for a bit too much from any rookie, regardless of talent level. That being said, Reese could very well have a short adjustment period. He might pick things up quickly at the professional level and learn how to execute legitimate pass rush moves in the NFL scheme. And honestly, if the Cowboys are going to invest a significant amount of draft capital to move up, getting one of the top defensive players in this entire class isn't something to be upset about. Whether it's Downs, Styles, Reese, Bailey, or any of the other elite defensive talents available, you're securing a blue-chip prospect that could impact your team for years to come. Here's something really important that I think a lot of fans miss when evaluating these hypothetical trades. Right now, the entire draft market seems to favor teams looking to move back rather than move up. This creates a unique situation where there might actually be discounted rates to move up this year. This doesn't happen very often in the NFL. When it does happen, it's a golden opportunity. I think back to the DJ Hayden and Dion Jordan trade, where the Raiders only had to give up a second-round pick to move from pick 12 all the way to pick 3. That was an absolutely massive gap in value. The question is whether we're going to see something similar this year, or if teams will simply decide to hold their picks and stay put. Now let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals specifically, because Schefter mentioned some very interesting things about them. The Cardinals could absolutely take Jeremiah Love at pick 3, according to these rumors. That's definitely in play. However, the Cardinals have also been mentioned as wanting to move down. The Commanders were even mentioned as potentially Love's floor if he falls that far. The thing about Arizona is that they've been linked to a lot of different players. We're talking Reese, Bailey, Maungoa, and Sonny Styles. More recently, there's been increased buzz about Love potentially being their target. Here's my speculation on what might actually be happening here. I think the Cardinals could be leaking interest about all these different players as a strategic move to drive trade offers. They might be essentially telling other teams, look, we're going to take this guy or this other guy, and we're making people in the league think we're going to pick in this spot. By doing this, even if just in a limited fashion similar to what the Mitch Trubisky, Solomon Thomas era teams did, they could move down just a few spots and still end up getting the guy they actually want. But here's the thing that doesn't add up for me about Arizona. If they're truly considering taking a running back with their number 3 pick, why did they just invest in their running back room? They paid Tyler Allier in free agency, they spent a second-round pick on Trey Benson not long ago, and they brought back James Conner. It would be genuinely strange asset management for them to use their most valuable pick on another running back, regardless of how talented that back might be. Here's what I want to know from you watching this video. Will the Dallas Cowboys actually make a trade-up in this draft? Yes or no? Drop your prediction in the comments section right now. Let's see what the community thinks about this possibility. I also think it's important to discuss some of the red flag prospects that Schefter has mentioned. Understanding who might be slipping or moving around the draft board due to concerns is critical to projecting where these players might actually land. According to Schefter, Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle, should still be considered the offensive tackle 1 in this draft. However, Schefter did acknowledge that Mauigoa has a herniated disc in his back. Now, the good news is that it's not causing him any issues right now. He's essentially pain-free at this moment. The concern is that if he needs to have surgery on this disc, it could cost him approximately 3 months of recovery time, which could definitely impact his season. And when he's able to contribute at the professional level. It sounds like most teams are comfortable with the current situation, but this is definitely something worth monitoring on draft night. Jordan Tyson is another prospect being flagged by Schefter as someone who could still very well be a top 10 pick despite some concerns. Specifically, Schefter mentioned durability questions and maturity questions surrounding Tyson. Additionally, Chris Brazzell has been flagged for maturity concerns as well, according to Schefter's reporting. While Brazzell is tremendously talented, we have to remember that he comes from the University of Tennessee, which is not known for being a particularly pro-friendly offensive system. Given the recent James Pierce situation, maturity questions surrounding Tennessee prospects might actually scare teams more than they otherwise would. For the Dallas Cowboys specifically, I think we need to pay attention to what the Kansas City Chiefs do with their multiple picks at 9, 29, and 40. Schefter reports that the Chiefs are probably going to take a new cornerback to pair with LaJarius Sneed and potentially replace Christian Fulton with one of their first 3 selections. If I had to guess, they'd ideally take a corner at pick 29, which is exactly the range where players like Monzer DeLay could be available. The Saints might also be interested in the lane corner, and the Commanders could be looking in that area as well. Miami represents another team that could potentially jump in this market. We're going to dive much deeper into corner evaluations during our live show later, so definitely stick around for that. I do wonder, given the Bengals trading out from pick 10 and the Giants being linked to potentially targeting Delane, whether there's actually a chance Delane could fall all the way to pick 12. Now, the odds of this are still quite low, but the possibility is intriguing. The Dallas Cowboys are obviously on the clock at pick 12, and depending on how the draft shakes out, they could potentially have an opportunity to grab Delane if the board falls in just the right way. So here's my question for you, the viewer. What do you think is the percentage chance that the Dallas Cowboys get wiped out and end up with absolute value when they're on the clock at pick 12, which is just 4 days away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I want to hear your honest predictions about what the Cowboys will do. Before we wrap up, I want to mention several trade candidates that Schefter mentioned in his recent reporting. There are 3 quarterbacks mentioned as potential trade candidates, including Anthony Richardson from the Colts, Will Levis, and Spencer Rattler. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys are not going to be in the market for a quarterback, but Levis and Rattler do have some trade value floating around the league. On the offensive skill player side, A.J. Brown is expected to land with the Patriots when everything is finalized, which isn't surprising to anyone. Keon Coleman has fallen out of favor with the Bills over the past year. Brandon Ayuk has not been cut as some presumed, and teams might try to flip him as a trade piece. Though a cut probably makes more sense. Kyle Pitts is mentioned again in trade discussions, which is ongoing. On the defensive side of things, Jonathan Grenard with the Eagles has some interesting trade chatter happening. I do think Devin Thibodeau is probably off the table following the Dexter Lawrence trade, which makes more sense for the Giants to keep him unless they get an exceptional offer like they did with Lawrence. Finally, Kenny Moore is a particularly interesting player to monitor for the Cowboys. If for some reason another team decides to make him available, or if the Cowboys struggle to land a nickel corner in this draft, Kenny Moore could absolutely serve as a reliable stopgap option in that specific role. So there you have it, folks. That's the complete breakdown of Adam Schefter's latest draft rumors and what they could mean for your Dallas Cowboys. This is absolutely crucial information as we head into the draft, and I want to thank you so much for watching this entire video. Before you leave, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with other Cowboys fans in your life. Every single like, share, and subscription helps us grow with the YouTube algorithm, which allows us to bring you more quality content faster. So please help us out by engaging with this video right now.